100 lives were lost. Over 700 more were left injured. Some scarred for life, others broken beyond repair. The train was built to carry just 960 passengers across 12 coaches, but more than 1,600 people were packed on board. Renowned author Beverly East lost 14 members of her own family in the wreckage that night. On the night of September 1st, 1957, what was meant to be a joyful church beach excursion turned into the deadliest transportation disaster in Jamaica's history. My name is Alexia, and this is Jamaica in 10. Please watch to the end as we uncover the story of the Kendal railway tragedy, an event that still haunts the nation nearly 7 decades later. On the morning of Sunday, September 1, 1957, the Kingston railway station was alive with chatter and excitement. Members of the Holy Name Society of the St. Anne's Roman Catholic Church in Kingston gathered for a festive beach excursion to Montego Bay. It was supposed to be a day of leisure and fellowship, an escape from the bustle of Kingston to the cool waters of the North Coast. Children clutched towels and treats, while adults packed baskets brimming with food, drinks, and many other treats. Spirits were high as families boarded the train, ready for sun, sea, and cherished company. As the train made its way through Jamaica's lush, sun-drenched countryside, laughter and music filled the coaches. The air was light with excitement as passengers sang popular songs, shared snacks, and talked about the fun that awaited them on the North Coast. The journey itself felt like part of the adventure, rolling past cane fields, rivers, and hills, with the ocean breeze growing stronger the closer they came to their seaside escape. It was a perfect Jamaican Sunday, alive with the joy, community, and the simple thrill of a day at the beach. But not everyone on board had come for fun in the sun. An estimated 100 hoodlum known pickpockets and troublemakers had boarded the train, blending in the crowd. Their aggressive behavior and foul language quickly turned the festive mood tense. They drank heavily, harassed passengers, and caused such a ruckus that one priest, visibly shaken, remarked that the wrath of God had surely descended on them. Unknown to him, that chilling statement would prove to be tragically prophetic. They had an awesome time in Montego Bay, and by 6 p.m. the excursionists boarded the train for the journey back to Kingston. Although the train was built to carry 80 passengers for a maximum safe load of 960, the excursion swelled far beyond that. Reports suggest that 1,600 people packed onto the 12-car train. Passengers stood in aisles, clung on railings, and sat on one another's laps. Yet, despite the congestion, there remained a spirit of contentment as families shared stories while others slept under the dim glow of the train's lights. Then just after 11 p.m., as the train approached a dangerous bend near Kendal in Manchester, the calm night was suddenly broken by a shrill triple blast from the engine's whistle, a desperate warning. Conductor Garnish Lurch has turned to his companion, Theophilus James, and cried out in panic, "We're dead now! We're dead now!" The brakes had failed, and the heavy locomotive was out of control. Moments later, with a terrifying screech of metal and splintering wood, the train careened off the tracks. 8 of the 12 wooden coaches were wrecked, 2 were reduced literally to matchwood, while others were gutted or had sides torn out. 1 coach, with everything but the floor torn away, remained on the rails and kept running for about quarter of a mile, with the dead and injured inside, underneath and on top, and bodies and body parts strewn over a wide area. Some persons died on impact. Many died from being spiked by splinters from the wooden coaches, and various other injuries. Children cried out in the darkness, calling for parents who would never answer. In the midst of the tragedy, individuals exploited the dead, the vulnerable, and the wounded, stealing from both the deceased and for those clinging to life. Villagers in Kendal, jolted from their sleep by the screech crash, rushed to the scene with lanterns and machetes, desperately working to pull survivors from the rubble and to see how best they could assist. The night air was thick with smoke, blood, and disrepair. Many of the dead were buried in a mass grave beside the crash site. I am currently in Kendal, just meters away from where tragedy struck, and it just feels so surreal being here, just even imagining the devastation that occurred that night. In the absence of cell phones, the scene was illuminated by the lights of passing vehicles and the bravery of those who brought torches. Volunteers rushed towards the disaster areas, with hospitals in Spaldings and Mandeville overwhelmed by the influx of victims needing immediate medical assistance. At Mandeville, all the bodies were laid out on a grassy knoll behind the hospital, where the lights were strung from wires from a couple of large trees to a small wooden building, serving as an office and a shelter. In the days that followed, investigators began piecing together the puzzle of what really caused the crash. Throughout the journey, a group of criminals had reportedly tried to disable the train's lighting system, intending to plunge the coaches into darkness so they could rob passengers undetected. Though their attempt to dismantle the lights failed, it is believed that they accidentally interfered with the braking system in the process. Some survivors claimed to have seen them tampering with the angled wheel brake cock while en route to Montego Bay, while others said it appeared to have been tightened at the train before their departure. But in my opinion, whether accidental or deliberate, the result was devastating. The angle cock had been improperly closed, rendering the air brake system useless. The train, unable to slow down as it approached Kendal, was a ticking time bomb on rails. The ensuing derailment left close to 200 people dead and over 700 injured in what would become the worst rail disaster in Jamaica's history and the second worst in the world at that time. The Kendal tragedy shattered public faith in the Jamaican railway system. In response, the government phased out wooden passenger coaches in favor of steel ones. Operational reforms were introduced and safety inspections tightened. Eventually, the Jamaica Government Railway was transformed into the Jamaica Railway Corporation. But even with change, deep scars, they still remained. Those who lived through the night have never forgotten it. Jean Giscombe, then only 10 years old, remember being thrown from the wreckage and searching frantically for her grandfather. And unfortunately, he never made it out. Irvin Campbell, 16 at the time, had been asked to vacate a seat just moments before the crash. The passenger who took his place didn't survive. For many, the physical wounds healed, but the emotional ones still lingered like shadows in their memory. Among those that were deeply affected is renowned author Beverly East, who lost 14 family members in the crash. She only learned the full extent of the tragedy years later through hushed family whispers. Her book, Reapers of Souls, sheds light on the event. And for many, East admits it never brought closure, only a renewed sense of loss. She continues to advocate for a permanent memorial at the crash site, fearing the tragedy will be forgotten if not properly commemorated. To this day, the town of Kendal stands as a silent witness to the disaster. Now, nearly 7 decades later, hope rises from the sorrow. In a landmark initiative, Minister Olivia Babsy Grange has partnered with the Manchester Municipal Corporation to construct a permanent monument at the crash site. A sacred space for mourning, reflection, and of course for remembrance. An memorandum of understanding signed in February 2025, just this year, marks the official start of the $7.9 million project, set to be unveiled on the 1st of September 2025, which is this year, the 68th anniversary of the tragedy. Minister Grange affirmed the nation's duty to preserve such memories, not just for the victims, but for a grieving nation. Beyond the monument, plans are in motion for a memorial park and museum, supported by key cultural institutions. These initiatives will transform the crash site, this crash site, into a beacon of collective memory, ensuring that future generations understand the weight of that night and the resilience it inspired. The Kendal train crash wasn't just a mechanical failure. It was a human tragedy marked by preventable loss and deep sorrow. May we remember the lessons it taught us about responsibility, about safety, and the sanctity of every life. And may the names of those lost continue to echo down the tracks of time, reminding us never to forget. Researching and writing this video was one of the most emotionally difficult experiences I've had in a long time. Reading the eyewitness accounts, seeing the numbers, and imagining just the sheer horror and devastation that unfolded that night was overwhelming. It's hard to understand the pain of the families torn apart in seconds, of survivors living with the haunting memories, and of just all of the lives that were lost so senselessly. My heart truly goes out to everyone, every survivor who still carries this trauma, and those who lost loved ones in the Kendal crash. And to the survivors, I hope that I did this video justice in bringing the story across. And I really hope you all learned something today, because I most definitely did. And please continue to support my platform as we go and grow together. We are over 7,000 subscribers and growing. I am putting in the work and you are putting in the support, and I am truly grateful. One love.